Good afternoon, honorable members. Rebecca Narugo is my name. I'm the Director of Operations and Business Development.
And my name is Doreen Kimbazi. I'm the Manager of Corporate Affairs.
Okay. Did you say the ED is coming?
Unfortunately, the acting ED is not in position to attend this meeting. There was an impromptu meeting that was organized. We have a board meeting, so we were not able to make it, but we are going to be representing.
Members?
Chairperson.
Can you switch off the mics, please?
You were the people who have just seen off. Was on the same grounds that they were not effectively representing the organization, and this is the Uganda Freezone Authority. We are, of course, happy that the ladies, the two ladies are representing them here, have come in here, but now which is similar to the first one, the acting ED. I don't know what happened to the ED, whether they have never had, maybe they will tell us what happened, because they say acting ED. A board meeting, Madam Chair. The acting ED decides to prioritize the board meeting to this committee. Which committee is supposed to help them at the policy level. The two ladies here, like we said, the other ones are at the middle management position. They cannot be able to influence policy like Colorado and like you. I think without wasting time, Chairperson, I think the same should apply. We should just ask them to help themselves and return them and do some work and ask the ED that the committee is not happy because we thought this is one way of we're going to help them. It's not an issue that you can just elect like that. We won't help you. You know, one of the people who are affected are these issues of the free zones. We wanted to get from them, but now at this level, I think bring the people who are let the person in charge of policy making or policy awards at the policy level. Even that body should have been here with that person. We need to communicate much earlier to these entities. And I don't think by that time they would have even set the board meeting. And even if they had said, this takes precedence, because by our rules of procedure, this committee of parliament has the powers of court. So if court summons you, you have to attend. You can't unless you want to behave like just ascending a lawyer to represent you in court. So we are sorry that Madam Chair will have no option but to ask the team to get back and with a strong word to the acting ED, and indeed if he wants to be the ED, he should attend if he really wanted the job, because now it's just acting. But if he behaves like this when he's acting, what about when he becomes a substantive ED? How will he behave? Thank you.
Yes, please.
Madam Chair and honorable members, we apologize, but the detail of the meeting is that indeed, as you've heard, he is the acting ED, Mr. Samuel Kasule. We do not have a substantive ED. His tenure elapsed in December, and we are in the process of recruiting. So, honorable members, Madam Chair, today was the interview for they are recruiting the new ED, and the acting ED is one of those who will apply. So,
Honorable Cassiano.
Madam Chair, there is an African adage that you can take a cow to the well to drink water, but when it refuses to drink water, you cannot force it, neither can you drink the water on its behalf. The best you can do is to take it back to the crowd. The essence of calling this entity to come and interface with this committee was for us to assist them improve in their service delivery during this time of COVID-19 pandemic. But now that they feel they are satisfied, self-sustaining, and they can do without the input of this committee, we are hardly left with any choice than to say, can you go back to the kraal and wait for the next day when you will have another headsman take you to the well. Since we have already set a precedence, Madam Chair, in terms of equity and justice, we will be utterly wrong and indecisive when questioned to entertain these officials from Uganda Freezone Authority. For all I know, Civil Aviation Authority has very many senior people. Not that we are, I'm sorry, Uganda Freezone Authority. Not that we are underrating these ladies who are appearing before us, but we want somebody who can be able to report and influence policy. Because ours is more of dealing with the policy rather than this hand-to-hand things. It's not operational level. We are dealing with policies as to how policies can be adjusted to fit into the COVID-19 pandemic. So having set a precedence a while ago, I think would be very unjust to entertain these two ladies before us, and then it leaks to the other two brothers who went away that, after us, we had similar colleagues of a similar ranks, but they were entertained. Probably they were entertained because they are ladies. So I think that set the foundation very firmly that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. A precedent which has been set, be followed to the latter. I so submit, Madam Chair.
I think, young ladies, you have fallen in your own trap. You said the acting ED. You should have told us from the beginning that the ED is attending interviews and that the chairman and others are the ones conducting the interviews. It would have been understood. But the way you presented it looked like the ED is there, comfortably seated.
They said board meeting.
Board meeting. So really you created the problem yourselves. You would have understood if you had clearly stated that. Yes, please.
Madam Chair, if you may allow me, and honourable members, Madam Rebecca Nalumu is the Director of Operations and Business Development. In essence, she's actually second in command to the Executive Director. I very well understand that a precedent has been set, but may I request for you to reconsider? Because as it stands, sorry? Where is she?
Let me speak for myself. Madam Chair and honorable members, we do apologize that the acting AD is not able to make it, but we have prepared this paper in consultation with the ED and all the licensed free zone. And the information herein, we believe, is very, very important as far as the implementation of the free zone scheme is concerned and the way forward in order to enhance exports and also create employment in this country. So we request that you give us, even if it's 10 minutes, to present what we have, and we promise that your concerns will be relayed to
Madam Chair, the question I want to ask my sister is, can you influence policy in the Uganda Free Zone Authority or in the economy? Can you influence policy? Are you at the policy making level?
Yes.
Because you don't sit on the
The
board.
board is conducting interviews.
Yes.
We don't
So you can't influence policy because you're not a member of the board. So you can't come here and say that you can influence policy. We are dealing here with policy. And we may even be saving you. You may even be saving you by you because you remain a wise person by not attempting to be asked questions. Yes. Then you say, no, I am going to bring back the responses. We don't want to waste that time because we know you are not part of the policy making body. But also you were here, you were listening to us when we sent the people of the equivalent rank, you sending them away. So just be equity, please.
Supplementary, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I think there are a number of organizations there who even came with that board. You know, they came with that board because they saw the importance of this meeting. They valued the importance of this meeting. If the board knew that there was going to be this meeting, they would have even postponed this interview to tomorrow. And you know, for us tomorrow we are not meeting because we have the budget. So they would have postponed this meeting, but by the fact that they never recognized this as a very important meeting, and even the document you are carrying is not signed. No, it is not on. Now you are saying you are a very influential policy person, but you fail to own your own document. At least Uganda Airways thing was signed. At least it was not signed, but at least there's a name that on it. No, there's a name that on it, the managing director. But you are, it's not there. So it's not about demeaning you. It's about really getting people who can authoritatively speak on even the board. You know, there are organizations who came here with their board really to emphasize the importance of this meeting. So I think rather than complain and say, you know, give us 10 minutes, I think you rather do the thing your colleagues did. You had them do it. You are in here. I think it will save you. Because we are not just meeting here for the sake of listening to written things. There are a lot of issues that members will be asking outside this. How would you respond to them? You wouldn't. You would not even own some of the questions.
Okay. I think you have heard. The reason why we call these meetings, as you said in my communication, is for us together to assess the impact of COVID on your agencies, and also together by sharing information and brainstorming, come up with the proposals on the stimuli to recommend to government to implement, to reactivate or to improve your agency. Really, it is not something like we want to interrogate you, to do what people normally fear when they are coming to Parliament. But this is a friendly discussion. But if the authorities who are supposed to influence policy, you've heard from the colleagues, if they are not here, then we cannot proceed. All that I can do is to thank you for coming up. I don't know whether it will be easy for us to find another slot for you because we've got a very tight program. In the event that we don't, we'll request you to come up with a more detailed submission in case we don't find time to meet you again, because we've got limited time frame in which to conduct these discussions. Yeah, thank you very much. We look forward to see you back again with the appropriate authority. Thank you.
Thank you.
When are you developing Kaweta?
Madam, however, the project stalled, the developer was not able to implement.
6 years now.
Yes. However, we have a pilot project in Entebbe at the airport, and we wanted to share with you. Yes. And implementation is commencing.
Okay. But we displaced people on over 30 square miles. That project was coming up, but for 6 years now, it has not. Yeah, CAA, can you please come forward? Good afternoon and you're most welcome. My name is Asaida Bumba, chairperson of this committee, and MP for Nakaseke, North Coast constituency, where we only see helicopters whenever the president comes. I've never seen a big plane.
My
My name is Fefa Chwanuka, MP Chiruga, and a member of this committee.
Jimmy Akena, leader of the municipality. Bernard, I come.
Damzong Joffre, Joe-based constituency.
So Jaika Mary Paula, Rubago Council, appointed district.
Majanga Andrew Aja, Kabale Municipality, Kabale District.
Kasemi Zatiwati, Aru Municipality.
Like Pakaslo County.
Officials, please. It's your time now.
Honorable Member of Parliament, I'm afraid we are missed.
I am the Deputy Managing Director of Uganda Civil Aviation Authority.
Good afternoon, Honorable Member of Parliament. My name is Richard Rahesi. I'm the Director of Air Navigation Services. CA.
Okay, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
We have had a problem with the last two delegations because they were not led by policymakers. Because for this meeting, we wanted people who can influence policy. But I hope at the level of Deputy Managing Director, you can influence policy. Otherwise, you are most welcome. The purpose of this meeting, as you saw in my invitation letter, is for us together to assess the impact of COVID-19 on Civil Aviation Authority as a regulator and as a party who is in charge of the main gateway to Uganda. And we also wanted, through the conversation, to see which stimuli we can recommend, ways of doing business better, reactivating your business and others, so that you are back on your feet. So that is really the purpose of this meeting. And without much ado, bearing in mind the curfew times, I would like to invite you to proceed with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and Honorable Members of Parliament and the other members of staff. This is an opportunity, Honorable Members, that we actually have been looking forward to as the agency in charge of aviation and also running the airports in Uganda. Because, as you know, Honorable Members, aviation probably...
Procedure, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
Can we benefit from hard copies of the MD's presentation?
Okay.
So that we
that
can...
says she has sent for some to be photocopied.
Okay.
So we can proceed as you work with it.
Thank you very much. Before I go very far, I be joined by 3 other members of staff of top management who have been somewhere in the jam, but they also have hard copies that on top of the soft copies that you already have. Honorable members, as you know, aviation industry has been probably one of the industries that have been hit by the COVID pandemic, to the extent that right now, even what we are putting in place are simply plans that are trying to build confidence back in the industry, but we don't see that industry operating at its even half normal levels in the next 18 months. We only hope, just hope, that there could be somewhere midway a vaccine, because that's the only one that is likely to open us up to the point when we think we can operate with the confidence that existed when we closed the air flights, in our case on 22nd March, and up to now we still operate with cargo. Cargo is hardly 15% of our normal operations. So in other words, the industry is for all intents and purposes, closed, except for overflights. Even those overflights are emergency flights, and a few cargo, as I will be explaining later. It is important to talk about aviation in a global context first, and then coming down to our Ugandan context. Globally, there has been concern led by ICAO. ICAO is the International Civil Aviation Organization, and sister organizations. One is IATA, the airlines global organization, and the council, the one that brings together air navigation services, where he has already said where it belongs. Because Entebbe, civil aviation is composed of the regulator, just to remind you, which is the main civil aviation authority, the air navigation service provider, the one you always see at the tower, and then running Entebbe International Airport and other 13 airports in the country. States have instituted a raft of measures such as social distancing as dictated by World Health Organization and our own Ministry of Health. Closure of some workplaces, suspension of private and public transport, and other preventive measures, including taking various actions that enable service providers and personnel to maintain validity of their certificates, licenses, and other approvals during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to IATA, as I said, is an airline association. Its analysis on annual passenger revenues will fall by 2,252 billion if severe travel restrictions remain in place for 3 months. Now, we are actually completing the third month, what they were trying to project. And that represents a 44% decline compared to 2019. This is well over double IATA's previous analysis of 113 billion. They had actually estimated it to be not to have this impact we have just seen, witnessed. They thought maybe it would come and go after a short time. The airline industry faces its gravest crisis. Within a matter of weeks, our previous worst-case scenario is looking better than our latest estimates. But without immediate government relief measures, there will be no industry left standing. And really, honorable members, I am not being pessimistic. I am simply coming from a realistic situation. Because if you have been at the airport, I don't know, maybe you don't have reasons to go there. You can see the kind of situation. If you were there before 22nd March and now. Therefore, airlines need 200 billion. I'm not talking about our own airlines alone. I'm talking about the airlines in the world in a liquidity support simply to make it through. Some governments have already stepped up forward, but more need to follow suit. These are the words of IATA Director General, someone called Alexandre. According to Civil Aviation Air Navigation Services Council, the current crisis has caused aviation traffic in Europe to plunge by 90%, putting the whole sector in very, very serious problems. And by April, Eurocontrol member states had agreed to help airlines to operate in Europe, deferring their payments that operate in Europe, deferring their payments of air traffic control fees worth euros 1.13 billion. So you can see governments are stepping up their efforts to come to the rescue of their own airlines, usually not just national carriers, but even other private airlines, to be able to sustain the industry. In our case, we have an organization called AFCAC. This is called African Civil Aviation Commission, the equivalent now of those regional bodies that to recognize the critical role of aviation in connecting people and business across the continent, supporting over 7 million jobs, over US 70 billion in African economic activity, that is African Development Bank data, and agrees with the other players in aviation ecosystem, such as ICAO and ACI. ACI is Airport Council International. They are organizations associations of airlines, that is IATA. ICAO, that is for the regulators and all other aviation operators. ACI is for airports. Those are the three. And then the council is for air navigation service providers. Therefore, in Africa, what African Civil Aviation Commission is trying to propagate is clearly that states have got to come up and support the aviation infrastructure. When you support aviation airlines, it also goes without saying that you should also support a regulator, because aviation works, the safety requirements of aviation are a mandate of aviation regulators, and you cannot support airlines without supporting the regulator. Air traffic in most regions of the world has declined by over 80%, with regional movements decline varying from 90% in South America to 50% in North America. This 56% in North America, actually, why it is not drastic as in other regions, they operate domestic airlines. When you are in the US, there are quite many domestic flights. That's why it has not gone to, a decline has not been 90% as in other places. With restrictions on international flights, oceanic traffic has seen similar decline, with 80% decline in Pacific, and 87% decrease in North Atlantic, and 89% decline in Africa. By the way, in Africa, this percentage is simply sustained by the few flights you see of emergency nature, but mainly by Ethiopian Airlines. Average daily movements in Africa declined from 1,800 to 200 in just 2 weeks, from a period from 1st to 19th April 2020. Effects of the pandemic on Uganda Civil Aviation Authority operations. Uganda air traffic situation. In Uganda, air traffic has reduced as demonstrated in Table 1. Table 1 is on page 3. I'm sure you have this table, but I can read it. International passengers by April.
I think in the interest of time,
okay,
the members can look at the figures quickly, since all of them have copies.
Okay.
I'll proceed to the next one.
Okay, what I need to emphasize here, honorable members, even for domestic travel in Uganda, it is supported by the several movements of tourists from different tourist centers who come to the country as international passengers. In addition, domestic travel is supported by government officials and NGO staff who travel up country in execution of their functions. All these were suspended, and hence the reduction of domestic passengers to zero. Actually, domestic passenger is zero. There is a table.
But perhaps, Madam, can you clarify, because we thought of it, there are no passengers at all. There is 987 there.
Which one?
Why don't you keep it until
the suspension of passenger flights, honorable members, into Entebbe Airport negatively affected stakeholders, including concessionaires, duty-free shops, restaurants, taxi operators, airlines, ground handlers, and the overall tourism industry in Uganda. It is important the income and expenditure from July 2020 to June 2021 expected revenue was supposed to be 293 billion, and fixed cost expenditures. That table you said, Chair, that maybe I leave you to read the table since they are with you. But probably of importance is to know that the implications of all these declines that I have been talking about. On employment, according to our records, air transport industry in Uganda directly employs 8,000 people. These we are just getting from the pass cards we have in our records. And these are not necessarily people who work with civil aviation or airlines, but these include taxi operators, they include the exporters of all sorts of things, clearing agents, so many people that work at the airport. Out of these, 1,300 are employed by UCA directly. In line with the directive of government scale down manpower presence while maintaining essential services, our labor force was scaled down to 40%, and 60% is on call and working from home. We have up to now tried to continue to leave them everybody on payroll as much as we can. We have not really reduced anybody, but we see the coming days becoming very, very, very tough for us and the industry, the rest of the aspects of the industry. This was necessitated by the need to observe social distancing and reducing operations owing to suspension of passenger flights at Entebbe. Aviation availability of credit. Right now, as you know, in civil aviation and especially Entebbe International Airport, we have big projects going on supported by the Exim Bank of China for expansion and upgrade of Entebbe International Airport. And the Uganda Civil Aviation is not at liberty to access any credit facility because that credit facility has, in a big way, limited our capacity to look for more. And even if we are to look for more, question of repayment would become a little bit of a problem. Financial and liquidity position of UCA as at 31st December, the money owed to UCA by government, that is UN and the US and the Air Force, amounted to 106 billion. Uganda Civil Aviation has made efforts through Ministry of Works and Transport to recover this money to improve the financial and liquidity position as given in 3.2. We are still really struggling to get this money. This money we owe is owed to us by the different departments of government, and actually this parliament, especially Kosasi, knows about this very much, and have gratefully been trying very hard to get us to help us to get this money, to recover the money. Now, let me go to measures put in place to contain the effect of COVID-19 pandemic. As you know, honorable members, aviation stands for safety, mainly safety and security in civil aviation. Even in normal times, our safety and security standards require to be above the normal, which you see around. But now for the times of this pandemic, we even are required to go a little bit further and ensure the highest level of standards of safety through putting health measures which are guided by Ministry of Health and World Health Organizations. And all these honorable members need further investments in our facilities. In fact, as of now, some of our facilities are not yet properly tuned to issue standards like social distancing, standards like equipment, having equipment that measure the temperatures of people, and so on and so forth. So we are actually trying to almost remodify our area facilities to move within the agreed guidelines that are being given to us by Ministry of Health and region and global bodies on handling post COVID pandemic situations. These measures some include short-term measures, decongesting of workstations by retaining skeletal staff, sanitization, as you know, it is also here, you have seen it, supporting open door systems, suspension of automated clock-in systems, say attendance and those at the airport, sensitization of staff on COVID, and so on. Those are short-term honorary members of parliament, but there are also medium-term measures which for restart or reopening of airport and aviation facilities. The restart will not be easy, honorary members, as I have just said, because it needs very, very big investment. Therefore, reopening of operations will depend on the level of risk assessment at regional, national, and entity levels. ICAO has already issued a state letter, honorable members, and when you read it actually, you realize that we are in for it, more or less. We need really to do investment. Because aviation, we receive people from other airports.
You have the letter back to
just as we were coming, I've just got it. So, but we are going to send it to you, honorable members. When you are coming from other airports, there are certain standards, whether you are poor, whether you are in remote areas, whether you are where, you must abide by, at least in a way that does not expose incoming passengers and outbound passengers to certain levels of safety risks that may not be acceptable. Therefore, it is important that we start in earnest as quickly as possible, because we are, first of all, in Uganda here, we are talking about repatriating. Even before we start with our normal airlines, we are talking about repatriating Ugandans from abroad, and then later the second stage will lead to commencement of passenger operations, and this is where the problem is going to start, honorable members, because the standards that will be required, which you cannot, with any degree of chance, getting below, you must actually maintain standards that are also maintained, say, in Amsterdam or Dubai or wherever. So we must, because of that, we have worked out the required expenditure to restart and sustain operations at least for 1 year, and that table is also under 4.2, which totals up to 150 billion. I have seen it in one of the newspapers, but I don't know how it went there. Yes. And I don't know, frankly, I cannot, maybe, I don't know, but we are not sure. I don't know how it reached the newspaper. But anyway, I am not, even if it has been reported, I don't think that probably that Ugandans, the owner of these facilities, understand these matters. I think it is, for me, it is not it's not a big problem. But my biggest concern was that the people who should take a decision had not seen it, and it is being seen by others. That's really the only concern. Yes, so that leakage is regretted, honorable members, and I hope we shall contain it. But
since it's not distorted, it's okay.
No, it's not.
Even it's marking in the figure.
Yes.
You are right. You are right that you should check the office.
Yes.
It may not only be this one leaking.
Thank you. The long-term measures, honorable members, it is assumed that air transport service will return to near normal operations after discovery of the vaccine. This is estimated to take a period of 18 months, at least as already published by World Health Organization. An appropriate recovery plan should incorporate the views collected through wide consultations with major stakeholders within and outside Uganda. As I have just told you, the views of ICAO are taken seriously. The views of these other sister associated bodies, the ICAYATA and the Council and the SCI, are also taken seriously, because these are the bodies that regulate aviation at a global and regional level. The objective of the plan is to coordinate recovery activities and avoid wasteful duplication of efforts, thus positioning Uganda's civil aviation sector on a strong recovery path. This calls for establishment of a recovery task force composed of major stakeholders working as a team under the leadership of UCAA, that is Uganda Civil Aviation Authority, to formulate a plan for the sustainable resumption of air transport services in Uganda, with the objective of building more resilient systems capable of withstanding similar crises, developing a regular and efficient air transport system that will meaningfully contribute to the socio-economic needs and interests of Uganda, catalyzing the exploitation of Uganda's tourism potential and growth of flowers and freshwater fish exports, providing high quality and good paying direct and indirect jobs to the citizens of Uganda, meeting the expectations and building confidence of air transport users and stakeholders. Attached to this paper is Appendix 1 and 2, honorable members, and it is a little bit of, it is elaborate and this one we share it with ICAO. I want to draw your attention to Appendix 2. These are global efforts, but as I have just said, global efforts are also shared with Uganda, because aviation is not just internal. And they are advising honorable members that yes, we have a national task force that you have been seeing talking about recoveries and new cases and all that, but the task force of recovery of air transport would probably be a little bit wider than that, because if you look at aviation and the other economic activities that are related to activities, I think these are called multiplier effects, multiplier from all over the place. Tourism actually is based on nothing but aviation. Exports of all sorts of agricultural produce that go by air also depend on aviation. Hotels, honorable members, these hotels you see mushrooming, even here in Kampala, if you now check, you will find near zero occupancy.
Near zero, not near zero.
Exactly. Thank you very much. That all are closed, are not occupied, just because of that incident at Entebbe on 22nd March, when the airport was closed. Therefore, taxi operators, clearing agents, handling companies, all sorts of people, food providers, duty-free shops, all of them depend on this very, very important person called the passenger. And once you don't see a passenger, then all those collapse. Therefore, we are suggesting, and this is, as I have just said, this is shared with ICAO, that a big task force composed of many stakeholders, not just civil aviation stakeholders, composed of airlines composed of hotel associations, tourism agencies, both government and non-government, transport operators, even ground transport operators, exporters, to make a task force that will work towards the resumption of aviation, especially opening of airports, And mainly, one, to take stock of who is still remaining in business. Because actually most of them have gone under, just in that short time. Two, to build confidence, both in the internal aviation service consumers, but also external. Three, to alert government that a problem has happened, and because with due respect, we in aviation, we sometimes see colleagues, government officials looking at aviation as if it is a separate sector. But I think COVID-19 has shown that there is no such a thing as a separate aviation sector. It actually affects all others, and that's what has happened. Therefore, we make this task force that has a strong voice, that will request the government, and if you look at page 18 of 19, the proposed stakeholders list coming from 17 to 19, it also includes mainly the private sector. And it will be coordinated by Uganda Civil Aviation Authority, and make sure that the voice is heard in the government, and the various agencies that operate in this sector are assisted to recover, but also are assisted to gain confidence and come back to business. This is just at the beginning. We are trying to, as I have just said, some of the documents we have just got them from ICAO. We are trying to put these things together. We are holding virtual meetings almost every other day, trying to get a position that can make us resume first of all open Entebbe International Airport, but also continue to support the rest of the aviation sector and aviation installations all over the country and here in Entebbe. With those chairperson, I think I am available, and my colleagues, the one who has just entered is Vianney Rija. He's also working as a public, he's a manager for public affairs. He's the one who is on answer.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation, which you have rated as a good one.
Thank you.
And it's quite encouraging that you are taking some steps to reactivate the business. But I'm happy that you have analyzed the problem, and any strategies which you are coming up with seem to be on the international track, and that's what we need. Entebbe Airport is our umbilical cord. I don't know whether what you are recommending here apply to the other smaller airports, because when I look, for instance, at Arua Airport, I don't see enough infrastructure where these kind of measures are going to be taken place. And if our target for all this is to attract tourists, I think it's important that even the few small upcountry airports and aerodromes are also subjected to the same care. And I think because of the COVID problem, the daring tourists might prefer to fly than to go by road. I was kind of dismayed when you saw that the loan which you got from Exim Bank puts limitation on your borrowing capacity. I don't remember that. We processed that loan in the 8th Parliament. In the 9th Parliament. I think we were together. But I don't remember that kind of restriction. Was it smuggled in the agreement? Because it's quite unfair. It's crippling the operations. Now you've got a crisis like this, but you cannot access funding. And yet the loan is for infrastructure development. Now what you need is of a recurrent nature. So what are you going to do under the circumstances? Is it possible? Have you tried to renegotiate the terms so that they allow you to open up? Or have you tried to see whether they can give you extra funding? Because I've seen other countries, China is giving a rescue funding, or even they are giving debt relief. They have given Angola, I think, very big debt relief. So I think this is something which we need to take up immediately, because I don't see government raising all the money to make Entebbe Airport operational. 150 billion. 150 billion. They may not be able to raise all of it. This is areas where you can borrow money, and since they are working capital and government backs you up to pay back this money. Following on the question which Dr. Kefa was raising, where did the 987 passengers come from when the airport was closed? It was closed on 20th March, but indicating that in April there were 987 passengers. And I've seen from your presentation that you've got domestic arrears of 106 billions. We have just passed on for budget support, and among the items for providing a stimuli to the economy, we provided money for payment of domestic arrears. But I don't remember seeing an item on domestic arrears for your sector. I don't know whether you didn't bargain enough or you didn't put your case well. But there is still time, because it's going to the budget committee where you can renegotiate to be given some money for domestic arrears. Because if your domestic arrears are 106 billion and you are looking for 150 billion, if you got the domestic arrears, you'll be short by only 54 billion. And you're not talking about the cold storage for fresh exports. I don't know whether that facility has been fully provided, because it's a very important facility. I'm not current on its status, but this is a facility which has been lacking for flour export and for fish. And since we are now doing all the best we can to export, I think this is important. If it is not covered, it's one of those facilities which should be covered in the short run. And when I didn't understand 3.33, oh God. Okay. This is in the appendix 1, security screening, 331. It says passengers shall show documents, ID, and ticket to aviation security officer at the crowded control. I thought we are getting rid of the word crowded anywhere in the airport. Huh? Oh, it is crowd. Okay, I'm sorry. Another one is 3.36. What is WTMD? If you can, because this area is rather alien to me, I would like to understand what that covers. In the medium term, what are you planning for the Odrums upcountry? Do these fall under your supervision? Because one thing which is affecting tourism in this country is the long road transport. Somebody to go takes almost 36 hours to travel from Entebbe to reach Chisoro. When somebody from Kigali, if somebody flies in to Kigali, it will take him 1 hour to go and see the mountain gorillas, which makes our tourism uncompetitive. But I've not seen anywhere on those what you are planning to do in the medium term on the upcountry aerodromes. And this is a must if tourism is going to continue, to go back and be the leading foreign exchange earner. We must not. The new normal will demand that we become more efficient and that we provide more facilities. And what you had seen before the advent of COVID, there was an emergence of Uganda being a super destination for conferences. The conferences will not be held in Kampala. People may wish to hold these conferences up country. So we need those facilities to help our people to access those. And lastly, where are we with the Kabale Airport? Kabale Airport. The last time we heard about it, it was moving ahead of schedule. Where is it today? And how are you fitting it within this as an alternative major airport? Not only for the oil sector, but also as a gateway to the major tourist sector. Having said those, I would now like to invite my colleagues to make their comments. Yes, Honorable Atiku.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the CAA for their detailed presentation. And we all know that they were the first entity that was hardly hit when this pandemic was declared in Uganda. And my attention has been drawn to a few areas. First, on the figures that have been presented here, 150 billion. I think it also appeared. I don't know whether you addressed the press before you came here, because the lead press organizations in the country featured this, and people asking themselves, 150 billion.
Sorry, maybe I would like to be clear that that press issue. In the last 2 weeks, we have hosted the East African Parliamentary Committee, YARA members. And of course, each time we get an opportunity, we discuss these matters. I think that's why it was picked, honorable members. Okay. It was not leaked.
Thank you for that clarification. So, Madam Chair, I'm very interested in the details of this money. How, of course, you have provided about 6 areas where you're going to expend this money. But when I look at the port health infrastructure and systems that you're talking about, just as an example, and knowing what facility it has been, so I'm wondering whether this 7.5 billion is going to put up a new one, or you are talking about the clinic that will always refer to go and get the yellow fever card. Of course, the port health infrastructure, Madam Chair, I've seen in this one-stop center, most of them actually have not been operationalized. When we visited Mutukula, we found the building was there, but not equipped, and it was actually being used now for accommodating the staff, health staff, who had been temporarily deployed at Mutukula.
That is for
one-stop center.
Okay.
And yet, an airport like Entebbe should be talking of a facility that is already up and running. So I don't know really, 7.5 billion, what you're talking about. It will be good for us to understand. Then improvement of regional airport passenger facilities. Facilitation. This regional airport passenger facilitation, it will also be good for us to understand. Madam Chair, as you've said, or you have correctly picked, the issue of upcountry aerodromes or airports, like for Arua's case. Arua is the second busiest airport in the country. But still, Maram, we have interacted. It's good. Sam is around, the manager of upcountry airports. We have been, Madam Chair, pondering who is supposed to allocate resources to develop these aerodromes. I think you remember very well, we had a tour of all these aerodromes. Some team went to Kasese, others went to Arua, Kidepo, Soroti.
2015.
But the infrastructure on ground is so wanting. Now, if Arua is your second busiest airport after Entebbe, and still Maram, the terminal that was put there up to now is not being used. So really, we see unseriousness on your side, because we are seeing our neighbors. For Kisoro's case, Rwanda has actually put up an international airport just across, and they're handing it over, I think, to Emirates to manage. And you know what that means. We have airlines that are landing in Rwanda and then coming to fly out through Uganda, and you know what that means economically. Exactly. You just come and pick and go away instead of dropping. And you know, Arua's case, Eastern Congo, they are across Aru, which is actually a twin town of Arua town. They're already thinking of developing their airport. Once they have an airport on the other side, Arua will be done and dusted. That will be it. So, Madam Chair, some of the things that we are dragging our feet on, yet the opportunities do exist. The issue of saying that the Exim loan has crowded their borrowing space, to me does not count. One of the areas to give economic equity in terms of resource distribution and employment opportunities is to develop these aerodromes, regional aerodromes. Develop the one of Arua, people will get employment. And now that it's going to be a regional city, you cannot have a regional city with the Maram runway, with an airport with the Maram runway. So where is the problem? Who is that person who is stopping you? Because we see entities coming here to borrow money. But this very important infrastructure, you have totally sat there, you have not bothered to get your fair share of the resources. Yes. So, Madam Chair, it will be good for me to hear from the Deputy Managing Director what hopes he's giving the regional aerodromes, including our own Soroti Flying School. I mean, is it Soroti Flying School?
Yeah. Yes.
Flying School, because these are institutions that are supposed to train and give us, first of all, the inland flights for tourism. Now that COVID has changed everything, we are looking at tourism as one of the sectors that is supposed to help the economy to bounce back. The issue of horticulture exports. If we are talking of exporting, how will horticultural products from West Nile, from Kisoro, be able to fly in or in time so that they can be exported elsewhere? So these are assurances we want from you. And when we're talking about post-COVID economic stimulus, we would like to see this roadmap, so that as members of parliament we'll put our feet down to say, you know, Arua needs 200 billion, put the money in the budget. Soroti needs 150 billion, put the money in the budget. Kisoro needs 200 billion, and we know the way we have given money to UDB should be the same thing, because these move together hand in hand. If we give
for information on our article, we took an exceptional loan to finance the Kavale International.
Exactly. So Kavale, and so these airports all should come out at the same time. When we are promoting agriculture, we know most of this will be for export. There should be infrastructure to be able to enable the farmers to export these products. Thank you, Madam Chair. I beg to submit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to come with the interest of Civil Authority. I'm sure Ugandans will be very keen to hear what what you're having to say about the situation there. Now, the chair has mentioned something about the international passenger, which is 987, and you will respond to that. But I'm also seeing transit passengers. And I was under the impression that actually everything was suspended. So there are some passengers, some flights which are still flying to Entebbe and they are going through. That's right. Okay. Now the figures there on income and expenditure on page 3. Okay, I'm trying. Unfortunately, it doesn't provide a good profile of your the financial picture, how your finances are structured, how you are generating your income and then the expenditure. But I'm asking myself, with what you are talking about there, concessionaires, duty-free shops, restaurants, airport, fuel farms, airline ground handlers, whether that is what is contributing to that deficit. But I wouldn't think that what you're mentioning here can provide the total sum that you're talking about here as the total deficit. For instance, the road restaurants, duty-free, are they paying that much money? On 3.3, I'm asking myself, when you say that you employ 1,360, and at the moment you have a workforce of 40% of that is 544. Are you telling us that you've made redundant the 844? Okay. I think it was not clear to me. It seems to be suggesting that you've made them redundant there. Then on recommencement, okay, you talk about urgent infrastructure improvement and modernization in line with the dictates of COVID-19 pandemic. But first of all, I'm asking myself, and you seem to even suggesting that for Ugandans who may require to be repatriated back to Uganda, that you cannot receive them now until these infrastructures are provided. That's what I seem to be reading from your presentation.
But 22nd is only 11 days away. That's the date set for opening up. It's only 11 days away.
But also, with the figures you are presenting there, I'm sorry if I may play just the devil's advocate. You're not using this pandemic situation to make sure that you improve your infrastructure, taking opportunity of it.
Yeah, but on Kefa, the pandemic has been an opener for us to come up with a new normal where we can correct the inefficiencies in the past or the inadequacies in the past.
Okay, for instance, I'm asking myself, is it because of COVID that you are having to enhance the security equipment? I understand the modification of terminal building to meet social distancing. That's what we are doing. But I'm not sure whether others are actually directly related to COVID. Okay, I think those are my comments on this.
Honorable Jim Akena.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. And I'd like to share some of the sentiments of my honorable colleague on the figures you have put for the restart stroke reopening. It appears some of these figures are not directly COVID related. And the perception, or at least what I saw on social media today, as this 150 billion came up, the perception in society is that this is an attempt to capitalize on COVID. It's a perception. You're now going to have the difficulty of explaining after the fact. If you had been clearer on some of the issues to deal specifically with reopening and also concerns with areas which would be the new normal, and then social distancing, what other precautions will need to be taken, what other facilities will need to be enhanced to handle the reopening of passenger traffic when it does happen, it will help clear the image of CAA. At this moment, you are under suspicion because nobody look at the data. They look at 150 billion now. Surely, it did not take that much. Closing was a one-day thing, but now the reopening seems to be a massive undertaking, which is going to be a huge cost on the taxpayer. On the fact that we have the Deputy MD here, I must bring up the issue of the Lira airfield, and I'm glad to see a person in charge is with us here. We went to try and address the Anai airfield, which has been in the process, I think, for almost the last 40 years. The difficulty we ran into is that CAA did not seem to have the title. Much as the community knew this was an airfield, the elders there said it was surveyed at some point, but some wise or clever people, unscrupulous people if you want it that way, were well aware that CAA did not have on hand the title and had rallied the people who have been utilizing part of the land for farming. There's no structures which have been built, but this is also one of the new cities. And definitely, if you look at, I've seen some of the issues of the domestic flights, it will make a lot more sense for me to board a flight to Lira, which will be much shorter, than spending 3 hours trying to get out of Kampala, then another 3.5 hours trying to get to Lira, depending on the time when it goes. Your whole journey, it is almost the same time which somebody is boarding a flight to go to Dubai or even to UK. South Africa. And you're just going down the road. That domestic flights are important. With the growth of the cities, all of these cities must be hubs. And for some of us who are moving up and down, we'll be regular passengers. It will be easier to have a car in the constituency where it's easy to hop here and back, rather than having that long journey from time to time. And I really hope that if CAA can clarify on that issue, because the airfield which is in existence is right now within the city, within the town, and it is no longer safe for use. But what was planned way back, it is not taking off. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Yes. Honorable Damson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to thank the team for the presentation. Madam Chair, we need to be honest, and I'll beg.
So when I looked at the 6 items that come to 150 billion, I wanted to ask whether, for example, number 1, wage bill. I'm very sure we have been budgeting money for wage for these people. In these 3 months, it is hard to convince anybody that money that was budgeted for this financial year could not cater for wage, whether people are working or they are not working. The 1,000, as we say. I would need more clarity on this, because we budget for money here, and I'm very sure in this running budget we have been having you have been having this money, and it becomes disturbing when we say you need more 72 billion shilling to cater for wage in these 3 months of COVID. What will happen if it goes beyond the year? I would propose that if not clear, we could reduce this number. We could look at these 6 and see what is related to what we are doing. Secondly, number 3, 33 billion shilling for security. Still, under our budgets, we have been providing money for security. And I'm very sure in the current budget that is running, you had what extra security issues?
COVID related.
If we happen to have maybe other justifications, what other extra things are you going to do that require 33 billion shilling? Lastly, on where my queries are, the block, concession block, I think this can wait. So when I was looking at the 6, Madam Chair, I got convinced on 3. And when I was trying to do the calculation, those that are rated with COVID take all the 30 billion, even without looking at the justifications. You find that the other 100 billion, unless otherwise, they are totally out of, they are not actually related. So I would beg that he clarifies. And as a member of the committee, I would support the 30 billion, recommending for the 30 billion. The port infrastructure system of 7.5 billion, modification to cater for social distancing, I think it is directly 19 billion, and number 6, improvement on the region. So when you add the 3, you get 30 billion or less. So I would request to give us more clarity whether all these items were not budgeted for, the 3 that I've talked about, and if they were budgeted for, what happened to the other money before you ask for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, you can now see what makes a difference between a policy maker and the operational managers. When you look at this report and compare to the people we told to go back, the way so, which means the thorough and the detailed thing, and of which you want to have the CAA for this report, I think is just because you scanned through. But when they go into details, including how you intend to open and all that, there's a lot of things which your public relations officer will need to put out there for the public to know that this is how it's going to be open. This is what's going to be done. They should not take it like an inconvenience to them, but this is what needs to be done. Madam Chair, on page 3 of 19, I don't know why, because I thought by now, because today is 10th of May of June, we should have also had the April figures, because you only stopped in April. We should be having May. We should have also had the May figures, but that's a small thing. Chairperson, I don't know whether that's true what we read in the papers, that the ICAO had given instruction that Entebbe Airport should be open on 26th of June. What I read was 26. They were saying 26. I don't know whether that's true or it was just social media. Or social media just wanted it to be clear. Yeah. We have talked about the airports. I don't know why because I thought when you are naming a person or naming a place, it should be something that is
significance has weight. That's why people name their children the Honorable Saida Bumba, because she has been the Minister of Finance. She is a model in Nakaseke. So when you this issue of Kabale Airport, you know, it's so confusing. But it looks like you have cut off, instead of saying Kabalega Airport, you just say Kabale. Because Kabalega, if you are used to Kabalega International Airport, it would be also, even the Banyoro would be full, yes. Or you'd have called Bunyoro Airport. It's something who doesn't know about Bunyoro Kingdom.
They're still producing the name.
Yeah, so it's a very serious issue. We may have to reconsider the name, whether you call it Kabalega International Airport or Bunyoro or something which is, yeah, you can't just say Kabalega. When you get to page 4, Honorable Chairperson, you have already asked about the Exim. I was going to ask about the Exim Bank, why they are still holding money, because alone they should be able to transmit the money. On this issue of the domestic areas, I know I have been in Kosase with the Committee of Physical Infrastructure. It's a big thing. It's a problem that has really bogged down CAA, because there are this, especially like the UN agencies, the agreement which was written, I think there were some diplomatic things. At one time when the UN wanted to move from Entebbe to Nairobi, no, I think they also used this as a bait, that we are moving because you are insisting on us to pay this. And I think the Deputy MD can clarify, because I don't know whether we should continue pushing for it, because we were told that the power that we said, no, we shall now where you remain in order to us benefit, because there are so many benefits also we get indirectly. But I think it was on the agreement which was signed at that time, and government took position to pay. So government should really be able to pay you. But also I wanted to know, you know, URA took you even up to the East African Court, and we are not happy with the way they behave. How can one agency, because there are tenants that the airport refused to pay, the internal affairs, I think also had the same issue, immigration, they're supposed to be paying rent. Because this is the same as even if you pay, it still goes to the same government. Why were they refusing? So I just wanted to know specifically for URA, because finally I think they were forced to withdraw the case after they failed in the Ugandan courts. That's why they had gone there. But the issue of domestic areas, I think if we pushed it, it's unfortunate that I think from the budget that we go to read, what I think government was only providing, that they will only pay out of the 3 or 4 trillion domestic areas. They are only going to pay for now 400 billion, which is just a peanut. This is just a drop in the ocean, because it cannot even cover, it just covers even the CAA alone.
And much of it is going for coffee ceilings.
Yeah, more of it is going to pay coffee ceilings. I think CAA is a key and important sector that needs to really, for us to push for, such that they are able to get to get enough resources, especially on these domestic areas. If they can pay all of it, that would be good for the Civil Aviation Authority. When we come to the, maybe to me, I want to put this question separately on this requirement to restart and sustainability of the operations. I want to ask you if you can categorize the ones that we need for a stimuli, because some of the things which I look at here, some are for the long term. What if we are governments to give you a stimuli? Of these, what are those key ones? Of course, my colleague Damuzungu or Damusoga was talking of this, the wage. I think if I got you clearly, you had said you have been able to sustain, you have not laid off, you are paying. To me, the understood is 72 billion is for the next financial year, because of the uncertainty that they have now, for the next financial year, given the operations. That's how I picked it, but you will clarify. Because I think you are one of those few that have continued, that has not laid. Because if a government corporation, which you had been told all the time that's making profits, New Vision, laid off the second month, they had already laid off. How could New Vision do that? The government corporation, which you have been told that is a well-performing corporation. So I think kudos to you for that, but you will have to clarify. But you need to isolate and say what's that stimuli that you need for now to start you, and those that you have included in the budget that's going to be ready tomorrow. So I think you need to categorize.
Additional information on that. At times, when you request money from government, they talk about the social. Do you have any plan for this in case the government says we don't have money for this one as planned.
And also the other one I wanted to understand is, does this one which I proposed here, does it include a certain airports you talked about, or this proposal of your stimuli here is only for Entebbe? Because you had said after certain airport. So because you should provide for all. You have had members here talk that all these airports needs to be improved. I was just concluding, sorry, Chairperson. When I look at your appendix on 15 of 19 about the airport taxi and hotel shuttle operation, this standard operation procedures for those taxi drivers, who checks them? Because I don't see them here, because they could be the cause of transmission. Because you are telling them that they should have things to spray the car, they should sanitize their cars. What about themselves?
Are they tested?
Yeah, are they tested? Because you should be testing them routinely.
Correct.
Yeah, because I don't see it here. You need to provide for that, especially those and the private. Those who operate the private part of not CAA, you should encourage them to have a routine check, because they interact with so many guests, so many visitors. Also, with those, Chairperson, maybe the other thing, like so you just have to own your report by signing it and give a copy to the Chairperson. Thank you, Chair.
Yes,
That's a good report. It's a very good comprehensive report here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Allow me to thank the Deputy Executive Director of Civil Aviation for this very elaborate report. Now, first of all, I consider Entebbe International Airport as a very, very important entity, being the face of this country. And therefore, Madam Chair, I feel that it requires very, very serious support. But however, I was wondering, Madam Chair, in the absence of this financial support, Madam Chair, is civil aviation ready to reopen in case the airport opens on the 26th? And what is the level of their preparedness? And secondly, and maybe lastly, I wanted us to have this expenditure that has been put on page 3, this in the table, to be broken down before we think of even deductions and reductions on these figures. Let them provide a detailed report on these figures, what they are going to take care of, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I invite the MD to respond, I have one.
Can I have one question, Madam Chair? That's one question.
Okay.
Thank you. Madam Chair, first of all, I want to thank the Deputy MD for a very good, comprehensive report. You have exhibited maturity in the manner in which you have fed us this information. I have only one simple question to ask you as an entity. With Uganda expanding in terms of business and attracting tourists, I imagine that even with the time we will have a number of flights and the air traffic will be very heavy. And at one point we may also go into a very unfortunate situation of some mishaps, whereby it may be necessary for you to divert some of these international air lines to go to the most immediate airport. Nairobi is lucky. They have Nairobi, they have got Kisumu, they have got Mombasa. But Uganda, we are only here in Entebbe. In the event that Rwanda is also very busy with its scheduled flights, Kenya is, Juba is, what do you have in plan? Really, in terms of diverting, emergency landing in your own sovereign country? What do you have in plan? Because this adds to what the Honorable Benedetico was talking about. We have a number of these airports which could have been now functional. We have got Gulu Air Base, though it is a military, but it is there. Nakasongola is there, Soroti is there, Arua is there, now Kabalega, or call it Kabale is there, Kasese is there. Can you at least prioritize some of these airports so that they are able to accommodate international flights should there be a mishap of directing planes for emergency landing? which place will you divert them to? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that fits in well with what I want to ask. What is the status of Kasese Eldrum? I remember the former Minister of Works visited there and we saw in the media she was unhappy with what was happening. I don't know whether they had got a contractor who never lived to the expectations. What is happening there? It's now your turn to respond.
Thank you very much, honorable members. It's really a mouthful. I think I've recorded.
You have to summarize.
I have recorded 30.
The curfew is coming in. I don't know whether some of you live in the curfew is pushing in.
No, we don't have Ridicas, honorable member. That's one of the reasons why it was.